self-made millionaires, meaning they didn't inherit it, they started from scratch, learn the 3 miracles of wealth accumulation. In this episode, get ready. I think you're going to gain insights into 3 miracles, marvels, whatever you want to call them, that most people think they understand. I'll prove to you in this episode they don't. And when you do, you're going to be blown away, because that's what millionaires do. And that's how they become multi-millionaires, and it keeps growing. And they also avoid paying tax on most of that growth. So put on your seatbelt. I hope to give you tons of insights on opportunities that maybe you didn't know existed before. So I'm Doug Andrew. I've been a financial strategist and a retirement planning specialist now for 5 decades, helping thousands of Americans optimize their assets, minimize taxes, empower what I call their authentic wealth. I've been very, very blessed to have met with many multi-millionaires, several billionaires. And they do things differently than most Americans, okay? And so the self-made millionaires who didn't just, inherit a bunch of money, they made it from scratch. I find they learned the 3 miracles of wealth that I talk about in all 12 books that I've been blessed to have authored thus far. So I'm going to state them, but don't check out. You think you understand them, and I'll prove that you probably don't, okay? The first miracle is compound interest. Most CPAs and tax attorneys in my advanced continuing education classes, when I ask them, how many of you think you got a good handle on compound interest? The vast majority raise their hand. And I go, we'll see. And this is what I do. I pass out an 8.5 by 11 sheet of copy paper, 26-pound copy paper. And I tell these CPAs and tax attorneys to fold the sheet of paper in half and then fold it in half again, hamburger style, okay, rather than in half and then in half this, but that creates a hot dog style, okay? And so they fold it in half and then they fold it in half again, twice. And then I say, now, you can't physically do this more than about 8 folds, but imagine folding over this copy paper in half 48 more times, a total of 50 times, okay? I want you to write down on your sheet of paper how thick you think that this copy paper would be if you folded it over 50 times. In some form of measurement, centimeters, inches, yards, miles, or whatever. And these are CPAs and tax attorneys who raised their hand and said, I understand compound interest. Maybe you said that. And then I get their answers, and they're giving me 3/4 of an inch, 6 inches. Some say a mile, and I go, okay, what's it doing every time you fold that sheet of paper in half? It's doubling, double, 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 double. Okay, Einstein said the 8th wonder of the world is compound interest. Okay, it's what has in a human embryo, sperm and an egg, and it divides in half and in half and half. It's billions of cells within days, okay? And then they differentiate themselves into different parts of our body. It's a miracle. Well, that's why it's a miracle, compound interest. So if $1 doubles, compounds, for 20 times, to 2, to 4, to 8, to 6, okay, it's already worth $1,048,000 in 20 doublings. We're talking about here 50. If you fold it over that sheet of paper 50 times. Do you know on the 42nd fold, even though that sheet of copy paper is 5/1000ths of an inch thick, I can prove it to you mathematically, by the 42nd fold, it would be from here to the moon in thickness. If you folded it over 50 times, it'd be from here to the sun, 93 million miles, okay? 93 million miles high. If you folded it over one more time, 51 times, it'd be from here to the sun and back. It's doubling, okay? And so that's compound interest, and yet most CPAs and tax attorneys who tell me they have a handle on compound interest are telling me the sheet of paper is 3/4 of an inch or whatever, okay? No, compound interest is a marvel. Now, Rothschild said no. The real marvel of wealth is the 8th wonder of the world is compounding tax-free. So that's the second miracle, is tax-free accumulation. You notice I didn't say tax-deferred, tax-free. So that dollar doubling for 20 periods goes to $1 million tax-deferred in an IRA or 401k. That's okay, but that's not all your money. Most Americans, 41 out of 50 states, has a state income tax. So between federal and state tax, a lot of retirees end up paying about a third of their IRAs or 401ks, if they're savers, in tax. And so if you have $1 million, only about 670,000 of that is your money. If you're in a lower bracket, 25% bracket, only about 750,000 of that your money is your money. But it's not all your money, and so that's not the best way to save. If you started taking an income and you had $1 million nest egg and it's earning 7.5%, theoretically you ought to be able to pull out 75 grand a year without depleting principal. But people who started doing that, averaging 7.5% in the year 2000, they depleted their $1 million nest egg by 2015 down to under 100 grand. Did you know that? And the average return was 7.5%. If they're averaging 7.5 and they only pulled out 7.5, why did they lose 900 grand of their principal? Because of the sequence of returns. They retired at the wrong time, at the beginning of a downturn. Do you want to have to time the market when you retire? Those who did not take out income, they had to put off retirement until 2008, and then they were planning to start their income. And then what happened in 2008? It dropped 40% again for a second time in a decade. It took until 2012 before their money came back to break even again for the second time. People who had their money in a L.A.S.E.R fund using indexing, where your money's not in the market, but you get to participate when the market goes up, but you don't lose when the market goes down, and you can learn about that on this channel. Their million nest egg in 2000 grew to 2.5 to 3 million. Most Americans, their $1 million nest egg went down to 600,000 twice and barely came back to break even, okay? Because they didn't understand what I'm talking about here. But see, at retirement planning is something totally different than what you do for retirement planning. So tax deferred doesn't cut it. Tax free does. A L.A.S.E.R fund is tax free. What's a L.A.S.E.R fund? It's a properly structured maximum funded indexed universal life insurance contract where I've averaged net cash on cash rates of return in excess of 10%. $1 million can generate $100,000 a year of tax-free income, and it could do that in the year 2000, 2001, 2003. It had nothing to do with the 9/11 terrorist attacks and the crash in the market and the 2008 mortgage meltdown. Our clients were able to generate 10% growth or 10% income without depleting their nest egg during the worst decade since the Great Recession, because they understood tax-free. They pull out 100 grand, they net 100 grand. In an IRA or 401k, frankly, to net 100,000 after tax in a 33% bracket, you have to pull out 50% more money. You have to pull out 150,000, pay tax of a third, 50,000 to net 100. That $1 million nest egg will be drained dry by the 11th year. If you retired at age 65, you're relying on Social Security, charity, welfare, or your children for support at age 76. The same million in a L.A.S.E.R fund is still worth $1 million, actually more than that, 11 years later, and it will last the rest of your life if you live to be 120. How much better is that? If you only got another 20 years of 100,000, that's $2 million, and you still have your million or more. That's a $3 million better strategy than the same amount of money in an IRA or 401k at the same rate of return at age 65. One was tax deferred, one is totally tax free. And that's why the second miracle is tax free accumulation. Now, the third miracle, a lot of people don't understand and maybe never will. It's safe positive leverage. What is that? It is the ability to own and control assets with very little or none of your money tied up or at risk in that asset. So what do I mean? I talk about what millionaires do. You'd be shocked. Most multimillionaires and billionaires, if you looked at their balance sheet, they have plenty of money to pay off all debt. Most of them have their house and all their real estate mortgaged to the hilt. Why? because they know any time with an electronic funds transfer phone call, they could take money out of their assets. A lot of it's in an L.A.S.E.R fund, and pay off their mortgage that fast. But they don't need to because they understand how money works. They know that a mortgage, if they borrow OPM, this is safe positive leverage. Now, leverage without liquidity is stupidity, okay? You leverage, you borrow money even at 6% interest, but many of them, they have good enough credit, they borrow at 3%. In a 33% bracket, they tax deduct it. It's a net cost of 2. That's what I've done for years. Even if you borrowed at 6%, tax deductible interest in a 33% bracket, it's a net cost of 4. So every $1 million they borrow and leverage, they borrow $1 million, they pay $40,000 a year of interest. Why do they do that? Because that's what banks and credit unions do. They pay you 4%. Why? Are they just a benevolent institution? No. They're turning around and loaning out the money at 6, 7, 8%. How much more is 8 than 4? They're making double. They're making 100% more than they're paying. Would you hire an employee for $40,000 that made you an extra $80,000? Would you buy a widget machine for $40,000 if that widget machine made you $80,000? Okay, year in and year out, and it just got better every year because it's compounding. Folks, the third miracle is that banks and credit unions only make more money by paying interest. And so when you're disciplined, the third miracle is safe positive leverage. Now, I said leverage without liquidity is stupidity, meaning that there are some people who leverage, meaning if they had $1 million, instead of paying cash for a piece of rental real estate, a rental home, instead of paying cash, they instead pay 20% down and they buy 5 rentals. So they take $200,000 at 20% of that million, and they buy 5 rentals. That's leverage. But they make the mistake of tying up their $1 million as down payments in all of those properties. And then when we have a drop in the real estate market, all of a sudden they have lost their money. They had no liquidity to access money. Smart millionaires, they don't do that. I have never paid a down payment for any home or piece of real estate. I've satisfied down payments, but not with my money. See, I'm able to, with good credit, get a first mortgage up to 80% loan to value on real estate, and I can get a second or third mortgage up to 90, 100% loan to value. I pay a little bit higher interest, but if I still pay higher interest, instead of 3%, I pay 6%. If I pay 6, it's a net cost of 4. Why do I do that? Because I'll pay $40,000 on every $1 million because I know I can make $80,000 to $100,000 more than the cost of those funds. And if you do the math, it begins to compound tax-free, and that's how money works. But see, I don't tie up my money. I don't leverage and tie it up with unnecessary down payments. I keep it over in a L.A.S.E.R fund where it's liquid and safe, so that if I need to access money, every $1 million out of here, I can pull out $100,000 a year and pay the mortgage payments. And I only need 40% of the interest I'm earning here to make the mortgage payments, and the rest is gravy. See, I'm in control. Self-made millionaires learn how to stay in control of their money. So when they leverage, which is the third miracle, they leverage with full liquidity. Because if you leverage without liquidity, that's stupidity, and that's what gets most people in trouble, is when they lack liquidity. In fact, on the front of the book, I have 4 pillars here that you can measure any investment where you put money. And if you tie up your money in something like real estate, the only way you can access that is by selling it or borrowing on it. And when you need the money the worst, it's the hardest to get. And so money in real estate is not liquid, okay? You can lose some of your principal. It's not safe. You don't have safety of principal. Real estate's going to go up or down in value, regardless of whether it's mortgage to the hilt or free and clear, okay? But on top of that, savvy self-made millionaires, they make 100 to 200, 300% more. Do you know I borrowed a lot of money at 3% tax deductible on real estate, and it's a net cost of 2, and I've made 10. How much more is 10 than 2? Every $1 million, I pay $20,000 a year, and I make $100,000. I only have to peel off 1/5 of my profit to service the interest. And I'm making 5 times or 400% profit on that money by using the third miracle or marvel of wealth accumulation. Okay, so it's tax-free. That's the fourth pillar. You can rank any investment on a scale of 1 to 10 on liquidity, safety, rate of return, and tax benefits. The reason why my L.A.S.E.R fund is my favorite vehicle is because it passes liquidity, safety, rate of return, and tax-free tests with flying colors. It scores at least 35 out of a possible 40 points. If you score any investment on a scale of 1 to 10, it scores 35. I know nothing else that scores that high. Most Americans have their money in IRAs or 401ks in the market. That only scores about 18 to maybe at best 22 out of 40. Why would you mess around like that with your serious cash? Most self-made millionaires do not own IRAs and 401ks. They do not put their money even at risk in the market. Very little. They understand how money works. So watch the next recommended video on my channel here to understand more. Our other videos are where I talk about what millionaires do to avoid paying tax and so forth and protecting their wealth. But if you want to learn by reading my book, The L.A.S.E.R Fund, you can go to Amazon, and it retails from $20 to $70 on Amazon. If you do that, thank you. But if you would like to claim a free copy, I'll pay for the book. And you simply go to L.A.S.E.Rfund.com or click on the link below. You contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling. I require a little bit of skin in the game, and I'll cover the rest of that cost, and I'll pay for the book. I'll fire out a hard copy of this 300-page book to you. And while you're in there claiming your free copy, if you like to listen and learn or watch and learn, there's those formats available. But also, there's an opportunity if you want to schedule a free, no cost, no obligation consultation with a specialist. I've trained over 5,000 advisors. These are the creme de la creme, the top 12, 15 that I know how to will do this correctly for you. They won't charge you for their time. Take advantage of that, and you can schedule a consultation to see how a properly structured L.A.S.E.R fund may work in your particular set of circumstances, and then you make your own decisions. This is about you and your brighter future.